My name is Charlotte Anderson. I'm 32 years old, and up until a few weeks ago, I believed my life was, if not perfect, at least beautifully predictable. I lived in a quiet corner of Connecticut, in the kind of house that sat behind hedges high enough to keep out the noise of the world but not so tall as to keep out the sunlight. My mornings started with a warm cup of coffee on the porch and ended in my husband's arms, wrapped in the silence we'd grown so comfortable with over the years. That was my normal, my safe. Nathaniel, my husband, was charming in the way that made other women envious but never suspicious. He had a way of smiling when he was angry, of speaking softly even when he didn't agree. People called us the golden couple. And maybe we were. At least, I believed that. Until the phone call. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 3 weeks ago, I was planning a charity fundraiser for one of my father's foundations. He'd built Anderson Steel from nothing, brick by brick, deal by deal, and turned it into an empire. My father, Joshua Anderson, was more than just a business tycoon. He was my anchor, my only parent, my constant in a world full of shifting loyalties. He raised me after my mother passed, taught me how to fight back with logic, led with grace, and never, ever let my guard down, except with family. I never thought he'd be gone so soon. That morning, I was on the phone with the event coordinator, arguing over centerpieces of all things, when my cell buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I wish I hadn't. Miss Anderson, there's been a crash. The words blurred after that. I remember my knees buckling, the way the phone slid out of my hand and clattered against the tile. My father's jet, his private plane, the one he never let anyone else fly, had gone down. No survivors, no black box recovered, just silence. I was alone. Nathaniel held me that night, whispering words I can't remember into my hair as I cried until I was empty. And then, like all stories of grief, life didn't wait for me to heal. The funeral came, then the will, then the board meetings. Suddenly, I wasn't just Joshua Anderson's daughter. I was his heir. I was expected to walk into Anderson Steel like I belonged, make decisions I wasn't ready for, and become someone I hadn't planned to be. Nathaniel was there through it all, or at least, he looked like he was. He sat beside me as the lawyer read the will in a sterile conference room filled with strangers in expensive suits. Charlotte, the man had said, you are the sole beneficiary of your father's estate. His voice was calm, practiced, like he'd done this 100 times. This includes all holdings of Anderson Steel, real estate properties, and private investments, effective immediately. I glanced at Nathaniel. He gave me a small, reassuring smile. His hand found mine under the table and squeezed. But something in his eyes didn't match the warmth of his touch. Across the room, Martha, Nathaniel's mother, watched with that same unreadable expression she always wore. For years, I'd told myself her coldness came from grief. She'd lost her husband young, raised Nathaniel alone, and had every reason to be guarded. But in that moment, when the numbers were announced, and the room seemed to collectively inhale, her eyes flickered, not with pride, not with sympathy, but something else, calculation, maybe, hunger. I brushed it off. It had been a long day. But over the following week, more small things began to shift. I'd walk into a room and find Martha ending a hushed phone call. She'd smile too quickly. Nathaniel started taking calls on the porch instead of in his office. Our shared calendar suddenly had business dinners I wasn't invited to. And once, just once, I heard my name said in a tone that made my skin crawl. From behind a closed door. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. Grief messes with the mind. I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and trying to keep my father's legacy from collapsing. Nathaniel had always supported me, always been kind. Why would that change now? But then came the morning I woke up and couldn't find him. Not in the kitchen, not in the garden, not in the guest house where he sometimes went to clear his head. His phone was on the nightstand, buzzing silently. 5 missed calls from a number labeled Reynolds. I didn't know it then, but that name would come to haunt me. I dialed it back without thinking. A man answered, his tone clipped and official. Dr. Paul Reynolds, Director, Hartwell Recovery Institute. I hung up. My hands shook as I placed the phone back down. My heart thudded too fast in my chest. And for the first time in weeks. It wasn't from grief, it was something colder. Something darker. That was the first real crack. The moment I knew the calm I'd been clinging to wasn't calm at all. It was the eerie silence before the storm. And just 2 days later, it hit. They came for me at sunrise. Men in medical scrubs, clipboard in hand, kind voices, firm hands. "Ma'am, please cooperate or we'll have to restrain you." My world tilted, spiraled, collapsed. And that, my dear viewer, was the moment I stopped being Charlotte Anderson the heir, and became Charlotte Anderson the missing. At first, I thought it was some horrible mistake. The man holding my arm had the kind of calm voice you'd expect from someone trained to defuse a crisis. "Ma'am, please cooperate. You're not under arrest, but if you don't come voluntarily, we'll have to restrain you." My heart jackhammered in my chest. I didn't call for help. I said, my voice cracking, eyes darting around, "I don't need to go anywhere." He didn't even blink. "Your husband filed the order." The words didn't register at first. "Your husband, Nathaniel." "No," I said. It came out as a whisper. Then again, louder. "No, that's not possible. He wouldn't do this." But they weren't listening. One of the men reached into his coat, pulled out a folded paper, and held it in front of me. "Court-mandated evaluation. Signed yesterday." There was my name, Charlotte Elise Anderson, declared mentally unstable following the death of my father, at risk of harming myself or others. The signature at the bottom, Nathaniel Ross Anderson, my husband. My knees gave out before I realized I was falling. They didn't catch me, just waited as I crumpled onto the floor, then calmly resumed their work, picking me up, guiding me toward the door like I was some kind of malfunctioning appliance that needed repair. I remember screaming. I remember grabbing for the banister, for the doorframe, for anything that might anchor me to the life I knew. But they were professionals, not cruel, just methodical, trained to ignore emotion. I kept shouting for Nathaniel. "Where is he? Nathaniel, Nate, I'm right here. I need you, please." But he never came. Not even a glimpse from the upstairs window. Not a sound from his study. Just the quiet creak of the house. And the voices of men who'd been here before. Because this wasn't new for them. Just another job. They dragged me outside. The morning sun was already high. Too bright, too harsh. I was barefoot. I remember the gravel digging into the soles of my feet. The sterile, cold scent of the van door as it slid open. When they pushed me inside, I looked back one last time. The door of the house I loved, the house I'd called safe, slowly closed behind them. And I swear to God, in the upstairs window, I saw the curtain shift. Someone had been watching. The drive felt endless. I don't know how long it really was, 30 minutes? 2 hours? My sense of time had vanished the second they strapped me into the van. I asked questions, begged for answers, my voice rising with every mile. "What is this place? Why are you doing this to me? Where's my husband?" Silence. Just the steady hum of tires on asphalt and the clinical scent of disinfectant clinging to the seats. Eventually, the van stopped. The door opened, and I was no longer in my world. The building in front of us was tall, bland, surrounded by a high black fence with barbed wire coiled like a warning. The sign above the door simply read, Hartwell Recovery Institute. The name sounded soft, comforting, like a spa for the emotionally bruised. It wasn't. Inside, everything smelled like ammonia and citrus. Too clean, too forced. The lighting was dim but artificial, like they wanted you to think it was nighttime even when it wasn't. The floors were too shiny. The walls were a sickly beige. And everything felt off. A woman in white took my clothes. She was polite, robotic, as if she were handling a package. Not a person. "You'll feel better once you're settled," she said. "Just change into these." She handed me a set of plain gray sweats. No tags, no laces, no individuality. When I hesitated, she pressed a little harder. "If you refuse, we'll help you change." I didn't have the strength to argue. And then he appeared. Dr. Paul Reynolds. A tall man in a crisp white coat. Eyes too calm to be trustworthy. "Miss Anderson," he said, extending his hand, which I ignored. "I'm the director here. I want to assure you, you're safe now." Safe. The word bounced around in my skull like a cruel joke. I asked the same question I'd been screaming since sunrise. Why am I here? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Your husband has expressed deep concern over your well-being. After your father's passing, there were signs, erratic behavior, paranoia. He just wants what's best for you. I felt the floor drop beneath me. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't about grief. This wasn't about healing. This was betrayal. I had trusted him with everything, and he had delivered me straight into a cage dressed as compassion. I was led to a room, bare walls. One narrow bed, no clock, no mirror, just a dull buzzing sound from a vent overhead and a small plastic cup of pills placed on the nightstand. The nurse who brought them in smiled softly. Just something to help you relax. I refused. She didn't leave. Not until I took them. I don't remember much after that. Just flashes, a floating sensation, my limbs heavy, my mind foggy, dreams I couldn't tell from nightmares. Faces, cold hands, voices calling my name from the end of a long, black hallway. And somewhere, echoing beneath it all, Nathaniel's voice. Not real, just a memory. You're safe with me. I wish I could say I stopped loving him then. But love doesn't vanish just because it's betrayed. It curdles, rots from the inside, and becomes something else entirely. When I opened my eyes again, everything was wrong. There was no clock, no window, no familiar scent of my linen sheets or the soft creak of the floorboard near the closet. Just a white ceiling with faint water stains, a harsh buzzing fluorescent light overhead, and the hollow echo of air conditioning that smelled faintly of bleach and something metallic. My mouth was dry, my tongue thick, my body didn't feel like mine. I tried to sit up but my arms barely moved, like they'd been filled with cement. Panic bloomed in my chest. I wasn't dreaming. I was still here, and I had no idea how many days had passed since they drugged me. They'd stripped me of my name, my choices, my voice, and now they were working on my mind. I could feel it, the heaviness behind my eyes, the way my thoughts stuttered and looped like a scratched vinyl record. They were trying to erase me. I don't remember how long I lay there staring at the ceiling. Hours? A day? There was no way to tell. Food came in trays, gray meat, soft vegetables, water in paper cups. A nurse appeared at scheduled intervals, always with that plastic cup of pills. Sometimes I took them, sometimes I tried to fake it. It didn't matter. They always knew. But in the dull monotony of that place, something dangerous began to grow inside me. Clarity. Not all at once. Just a flicker at first. A sliver of myself I thought they'd stolen. But it was still there, buried under sedatives and betrayal, but alive. And then, out of nowhere, she appeared. It was during free time, which was just code for, you get to sit in the common room for an hour and stare at beige walls together. I was slumped on a couch when a girl about my age sat down next to me like we were old friends. I wouldn't eat the carrots, she said, stabbing hers with a fork. They're always undercooked, like sad rubber bullets. I turned, too slow to react. She didn't look like the others. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, and her dark hair was twisted into a loose braid that she kept twirling around her fingers like she had secrets trapped in it. What do you mean? I croaked, my voice raspy from disuse. She leaned in. This place? It's not what you think. You're not the first they've dumped here. Sweetheart. I blinked. What? You think you're here because you're sick? Because you're grieving? She smirked. No, darling. You're here because someone wanted you gone. And they paid a lot to make that happen. Something in my chest froze. How do you know? She leaned back like it was nothing. Because they did the same to me. Her name was Lily, 29, used to work in finance until she accused a senior partner of embezzling. A week later, she was deemed unstable and committed by her own mother, who just happened to be on the board of the company. I got out once, she said, 2 whole days on the outside before they found me sleeping behind a laundromat and dragged me back. Upped my meds, solitary for a week. I stared at her, unsure if I should believe a word she said. But there was something too real in her eyes, something I recognized. Survival. Why are you telling me this? I asked quietly. She shrugged. Because you don't belong here. And because I'm not planning to rot in this place. I'm getting out again, and this time, I'm not going alone. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling and listened to the hum of the vents and the ticking in my chest. Lily was right. I didn't belong here. But someone had made damn sure I'd never leave. And I was done playing by their rules. The next morning, I pretended to take the pills. Spit them into the sink when no one was watching. I began to observe everything, the timing of nurse rotations. The guards' shift changes. Which doors clicked locked. Which ones didn't. Lily and I kept up our act, barely speaking. Just trading quick whispers and glances in passing. She pointed out which cameras had blind spots. She told me which staff members were lazy. Who could be distracted. Which corridors were never fully supervised at night. I became someone else. Someone my husband wouldn't recognize. Someone his mother would fear. On the fourth night, something shifted. I was returning from the bathroom when I passed Dr. Reynolds in the hallway. He didn't expect to see me. I could tell by the flicker in his eyes. But what made me stop in my tracks wasn't him. It was the woman he was speaking to. Blonde, poised, draped in pearls. Martha. My breath caught in my throat. She was here. She had the gall to walk these halls like she owned them. And maybe, in a way, she did. As I backed into the shadows, her voice floated down the hallway, light, confident, polite. She doesn't suspect anything, does she? She asked. Reynolds' reply was soft. She's beginning to show signs of resistance. We may need to adjust the dosage again. I don't care how you do it, she said, her voice turning to ice. Just keep her docile until the board signs off on the transfer. After that, she's expendable. I didn't hear the rest. I didn't need to. My stomach turned to stone. My lungs barely worked. They weren't just trying to hide me. They were planning to erase me. For good. And that was the moment it all crystallized. This wasn't grief. This wasn't madness. This was war. And I was going to survive it. Even if it killed me. We chose the night carefully. Lily said it was all about rhythm. Patterns. People are lazy, predictable creatures when they think no one's watching. And after weeks of studying the staff, she knew their routine better than they did. Tuesday night. Shift change at 2 a.m. One camera in the east hallway goes out for exactly 3 minutes every cycle. The night nurse on the west wing always sneaks outside to smoke around 2:15. And most importantly, drive. Reynolds wouldn't be on site. I've done this before, she whispered during dinner, her voice low as she stirred bland soup. The last time I got caught because I hesitated. This time, no hesitations. My hands shook slightly as I pretended to eat. My heart beat faster than it should have. I wasn't sure if it was fear or adrenaline. Or maybe the overwhelming weight of what we were about to do. She smuggled me a keycard. Stolen from a nurse who always left it in her front pocket like it was an accessory. Not a lifeline. We stick to the blind spots. You follow my lead. We get to the maintenance corridor. And then, we run. I nodded. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the cracked ceiling and recited our plan in my head over and over again. I'd already made peace with one truth: if we got caught, I would not be coming back to this room. I'd be locked down permanently. More pills, more lies, more silence. At 2:08 a.m., Lily met me outside the common room, her dark eyes sharp as blades. Ready? She asked. I nodded. I didn't speak. Words felt dangerous now. She moved first, silent and fluid, like she'd rehearsed this in her dreams. We slipped down the hallway, sticking close to the wall, avoiding the dull hum of cameras above. When we reached the nurse's station, she created the distraction, a crash of metal trays hitting the floor. Loud enough to rattle the whole wing. Voices erupted, footsteps thundered. I ran, keycard in hand. I ducked through the first door and didn't look back until I hit the hallway near the back exit. Lily appeared seconds later, panting, her braid messy and loose. We're good, she whispered, wiping sweat from her forehead. Come on, maintenance doors around the next corner. But as we turned it, a shout. Stop, hey, 2 guards. They came fast, too fast. Split. Lily hissed. You keep going. You've got the card. I'll handle them. No. Charlotte, go. Before I could argue, she was already moving. She snatched a loose mop handle from a utility cart and swung it at the first guard, buying me a split second of escape. I ran, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. The hallway blurred as I sprinted, legs burning, lungs searing. My body was still weak from weeks of sedation. But adrenaline made me a stranger to myself, stronger, faster, desperate. The maintenance door loomed ahead. Rusted, heavy, but not locked. I shoved it open and was greeted by a wall of cold night air. It slapped my skin like ice. Outside. I was outside. I could feel freedom clinging to the wind. It smelled like grass, dirt, life. But the final obstacle was still ahead, the wall. 10 feet high, concrete, topped with rusted wire, and no ladder. My pulse screamed. Behind me, I heard Lily scream, "Keep going, Charlotte." I didn't hesitate. I ran to the wall, found a broken drain pipe, and began to climb. My fingers bled, my muscles trembled, my foot slipped twice, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. When I reached the top, I turned back. Lily was on the ground, held by 2 guards, her face bruised, her voice defiant. One of them had her arms pinned. But she was still fighting, still spitting curses, still giving me the seconds I needed. "Run, damn it," she screamed. And I did. I dropped to the other side, landed hard, rolled on dirt and gravel. The pain was real, beautiful, grounding. I didn't stop to breathe. I just kept running. I didn't look back. If I had, I might have turned around. I ran through the woods, through fields I couldn't name, my bare feet torn open, my throat dry. Somewhere, dogs barked in the distance. A siren blared. But I ran until the sun touched the horizon. Until I collapsed behind a gas station dumpster miles away, sobbing into my own arms. I'd made it out, but not whole. Because Lily didn't. She gave me her shot, her plan, her sacrifice. And I would carry that weight for the rest of my life. 2 days later, I was still hiding, wearing clothes I stole from a laundromat dryer, eating scraps from trash cans, sleeping behind old buildings. I didn't look like Charlotte Anderson, heiress of Anderson Steel. I looked like a ghost. But I still had one thing they didn't expect, my mind. And my rage. On the 3rd night, I scraped together enough coins to use a payphone outside a bowling alley. I dialed the only number I still remembered by heart. The receptionist answered, clipped and professional. "Anderson Steel, how may I direct your call?" I took a breath. "My name is Anna Collins." I lied. "I'm a former colleague of Jonathan Sachs. I need to speak to him urgently." A pause. Then, "1 moment, please." And when his voice came through the line, deep, familiar, startled, I felt the first sliver of safety pierce through the numbness. "Jonathan," I whispered. "It's me, Charlotte." Jonathan arrived at the park just as the sun dipped below the tree line, casting long orange shadows across the empty benches. I watched him from behind a crooked oak, heart hammering like it might leap out of my chest. I had half a mind to run. But where? I had nowhere left. Nothing but truth, and the rage that came with it. He looked older, tired, like the last few weeks had aged him years. But when I stepped out from the shadows and called his name, he froze like he'd seen a ghost. "Charlotte," he whispered. "Oh my God, you're alive." We sat on the farthest bench in the park, as far from the path as we could get. He offered me his coat. I didn't take it. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers, and maybe revenge. "I need your help," I told him, "and I need you to believe every word I say." He did. Maybe because he'd known my father. Maybe because he'd always known something about Nathaniel didn't add up. Or maybe, like me, he was tired of pretending the world made sense when people like Martha could twist it to their will. Jonathan didn't waste time. The next morning, he brought in David Harper, a private investigator with eyes like a hawk and no patience for bullshit. Together, they gathered everything: court filings, forged documents, bank transfers, falsified medical reports. It took less than a week for them to connect the dots. Nathaniel and Martha hadn't just tried to lock me away. They'd paid for it, planned it, covered every track. Except me. I was the loose end they didn't expect to survive. Jonathan showed me a photo one morning, Nathaniel shaking hands with Dr. Reynolds. The timestamp? 3 days before I was admitted. Another photo, a wire transfer receipt for $250. Another, emails between Martha and the judge who expedited my evaluation. Friendly, too friendly. And then, the last one. A memo from Anderson Steel's legal department. A clause I never knew existed. If I were declared mentally unfit, the board could transfer control of the company, temporarily, of course, to the next closest family member. That person was Nathaniel. It wasn't just about silencing me. It was about owning me. I stared at the photos for hours. And then I picked up the phone. I don't know what I expected when he answered. Maybe a denial, maybe silence. But the second Nathaniel heard my voice, he froze. Charlotte, he breathed. Oh my God. Is it really? Save it, I snapped. Don't lie. Don't act like you didn't do this. I was trying to help you. He stammered. You weren't okay. After your father. You mean after my father died and I inherited everything? I cut in. Let's not rewrite history. Nathaniel, you didn't try to help me. You drugged me. You locked me in a cage and told the world I was broken. Silence. Then, I didn't want to lose everything. There it was. The truth. He hadn't done it because he thought I was spiraling. He did it because he thought I wouldn't fight back. Well, surprise, I said coldly. I'm still here, and I'm coming for everything. Charlotte, please, I'll fix it. I'll tell them everything. I didn't mean for it to go that far. You can explain it to the police, I said, and hung up. The next morning, I stood across the street from the mansion that used to be my home. Police lights reflected off the marble pillars like something out of a dream. 2 officers approached the front door, knocked once, and then it all unraveled. Nathaniel opened the door wearing a robe. His face drained of color the moment he saw the uniforms. He tried to close it. They stopped him. Martha was pulled from the upstairs landing, arms stiff at her sides, chin high, eyes cold. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just looked straight ahead like a queen stepping into exile. But Nathaniel begged. When they cuffed him, he shouted my name, over and over. Charlotte, please, you don't understand. I love you. I never meant, Charlotte. Please. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just stood there on the sidewalk, watching, letting the moment carve itself into my memory like a scar. They dragged him into the back of the police cruiser. Martha followed behind, her silence louder than his screams. And then the doors shut. And I was alone again. But not broken, just quiet. That evening, Jonathan and I sat on the back porch of his lake house, watching the reflection of stars ripple across the water. You did it, he said. No, I whispered. Lily did. We were quiet for a long time. Then he asked the question I'd been avoiding since I'd climbed over that wall. What now? I didn't have an answer. I had the company, the truth, my name, but I'd also lost something I couldn't name. A version of myself that trusted too easily, that believed love was enough. And somewhere behind concrete walls, Lily was still there, fighting alone. So no, it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. But it was a start. A slow, burning ache of justice finally taking root. And from that ache, maybe, one day, I'd build something stronger than revenge. I'd build freedom.